Good morning to all of you. In the last class, we have tried to understand about the natural resources, wherein which we have studied about the deforestation and its impact, and how the deforestation is causing the lot of problems to nature and ultimately to the mankind. Today, we will move a step further. Let's try to understand about the water, its importance, its exploitation, over exploitation, and the conflicts which are associated with this water, both national as well as the international. We will also try to understand the role of biodiversity and the how this biodiversity has been uh, managed by the tribal population since time immemorial. All these things we have to discuss, and today first we will start with the biodiversity and the tribal population. First, we will start about this one. So, all of you know this biodiversity is nothing but whatever the diversity of the living beings that you observe around you is known as biodiversity. I am not going to discuss in detail about the biodiversity because in the next chapter, the entire chapter is dedicated to this biodiversity. But in nutshell, if I have to say, it is the diversity that you see. You see different types of plants, different types of animals. Within the plants also, you have different varieties. All those things comes under this biodiversity, and the entire our livelihood depends on this biodiversity. So now, though we have lot of mechanism and management practices to protect this biodiversity, to conserve this biodiversity, or to manage this biodiversity, but there are many communities or people who have been managing this biodiversity very well from time immemorial. So that's why biodiversity conservation, we can learn a lot from those people who are already involved in the management of this. For this, we need to understand the local languages and their own institutional mechanism, how they are able to conserve this or manage this biodiversity. So in India, if you take the traditional knowledge is very very important because uh, we are a diverse country. India itself is a diverse country. With it may be because of the geography, or it may be because of the religions, or it may be because of different biogeographical provinces that we have, or it can be because of the languages, caste systems, communities. All those things make our country a very diverse country. So, as I have told you, traditional knowledge always lies with those communities, and that's why I have told you it's a diverse country as there are 2,753 communities, and they are not found in one place, they are found everywhere in the country, and as far as that geographical distribution is concerned, and their their livelihood activities are also very diverse. Either it may be their farming practices or food habits or the cultural strategies that they involve. Even their sociology or social life is also diverse. So that's the reason India is known as a mega biodiversity country, and not only with terms to biodiversity, even with respect to the other cultural aspects or social aspects, food habits, and variety of those things. So here I am trying to understand how local communities, what we call the tribal communities, uh, they are tribal communities are usually a small group of population, I should say, found in the some in the they are not found in the cities or towns, but they are usually found in the remote corners, especially in the countryside or in the hilly terrain. Uh, where they are not till today exposed to the modern amenities as well as the modern facilities also, and to the modern life practices. So that's, but traditionally they are always with the biodiversity. Their maximum livelihood comes from the use of this biodiversity. That's why they are very keen in managing those biodiversity. Local people are uh, managing this diversity. Though in the modern trend we have so many other mechanisms to conserve the biodiversity, but these traditional people or these ethnic groups or these tribals, they have their own strategy of managing the diversity, for the very simple reason that they know that their livelihood totally depends on this biodiversity, especially not only in India, even in Asia, South America, Africa, and in other parts of the world also. You can expect these communities, ethnic groups, or the tribal communities, and they are involved in this management. People, because these people uh, follow certain ethics. Ultimately, these ethics help to regulate the interaction with the natural environment. Though they are the part of the natural environment, uh, they do follow certain ethics so that uh, a sustainable use of these resources are achieved, so that this same diversity is available to their future generation also. So they, especially because of these ethics, which mainly regulate the interaction with the natural environment. So these ethics may be traditional or uh, like religious, traditional, royal tradition, livelihood tradition, different types of traditions they follow. And these traditions usually emphasizes on the sustainable and sustainable harvest of the natural resources and equitable distribution of. So that's why these communities become very very uh, important as far as the management of this biodiversity is concerned. Now let's try to understand about the religious tradition. So religious traditions may be temple forests or what you call the sacred groves. ದಿಸ್ ಪವಿತ್ರ ಕಾಡು ಅಥವಾ ದೇವರ ಕಾಡು ಅಂತ ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಟೆಂಪಲ್ ಫಾರೆಸ್ಟ್, ದೆರ್ ಆರ್ ಸರ್ಟನ್ ಇನ್ ಎವ್ರಿವೇರ್. ಇಫ್ ಯು ಗೋ ಟು ದಿಸ್ villages, there's a patch of forest. Sometimes it may be few hectares also, where no human activities are permitted. Even you cannot go there and collect the litter also. So they preserve and conserve the primary forests. This is the tradition, really, because of the taboo. No one is permitted. Or it may be like temple forest, there are monastery forests by Buddhists, or sanctified forest, uh, Diphed forest. These are the different names, but for the religious reason, no activities are permitted. Usually, there may be some deity like Bhutavana or Devivana, like that. Some either a mother god or a uh, deity will be there, and in its natural environment, once in a year they go there and worship and come back, but they don't take anything from that. So that's why that helps us in managing the diversity. Like that, because these forests and groves serving as cultural and social space, service and livelihood products also. They know that the forest and groves are very very important for them. It's a forest or nature is a part of their life, both cultural and social space, and they get benefit out of it, but at the same time not harming the groves or forest. So traditional tribal peoples usually uh, they depend how they collect. They not only collect the wood and non-wood products, but also they manage that. Uh, they are. very very important as far as this diversity is concerned. Such forests are very high in biological diversity, and especially the sacred groves contain lot of endangered species, including rare herbs and medicinal plants. So, 79 sacred forests have been identified, and these groups consist of 514 species coming under 340 genera and 131 families. See, this is one Bhutia community managing that. About uh, about one third of the total sacred grove area is totally undisturbed. No human activities are permitted, and about 42.1% of the area of the sacred groves are relatively dense forest, and only 26.3% has sparse canopy cover and 30% have open forest. The species diversity in these indicators uh, indicate indicates where higher richness of these many of the endangered plants and animals are found. Uh, Even in the sacred groves are much richer in their flora and fauna compared to the undisturbed forest or even disturbed forest also. But now what is happening is, on one hand, many of these tribal people are helping us in conserving this biodiversity. But at the same time, these tribal people are facing the problem of deforestation. Deforestation is actively going on, which all of you are aware. But this deforestation has negatively affected on these tribal people, because you know 1 person out of every 20 on this earth belongs to these tribes or indigenous cultures, and that is found in almost 70 countries. We have these tribals. Uh, if you estimate all over the world, the, there are more than 5,000 tribal cultures, and these tribal cultures are vanishing uh, because their lands are taken for the economic development. Their lands are taken for the economic development. When large dams are being constructed, either in the Himalaya or in Western Ghat, that create lot of ecological problem. As I have told you, these tribals are directly depending on the forest, and even Silent Valley projects, Berti projects have already been given by Kerala and Karnataka government because of uh, that affects the tribals. So deforestation, especially if it happens, these tribal people are unable to carry out their traditional way of life, and their homeland is often destroyed because they are depending on the products non-timber forest produce, NTFP, what we call. They may be collecting honey, they may be collecting some medicinal plants, some flowers, birds. So they make use of their livelihood by depending on the forest. If you come to Uttarakhand, a lot of people earn their livelihood by collecting this what you call Rampatre or Uppangi or Surge, like that. If the diversity in forest is lost, the livelihood of those people are also lost, and as a result, it will affect their food and water resources. So that's why the tribes, those who are living in the rainforest, are likely to lose their occupation because they do not use the modern technology. When the trees are cut down, it will destroy their homes, and they either if the some developmental work comes, they are rehabilitated somewhere. If you rehabilitate these tribals somewhere in the city or where there is no forest, they cannot survive because of that job loss. So when even not only the job, they lose their culture also, which has been lasted with that tribe for generations. And along with that, we will also lose the big treasure of this traditional knowledge and belief systems. And their beliefs and knowledge help them to live in harmony within the rainforest for so many generations, and they never harmed these forests. And they know lot of great knowledge about the forest and how it works, and they have a lot of awareness about the medicinal plants and all those things. So that's why in conclusion, uh, even long before the word conservation was coined, the people developed highly effective measure. They have their own measure of maintaining the richness of their environment. These conservation practices, management practices are the most recent one. But from time immemorial, these people are having the effective measures for maintaining the richness of their environment. And they have a very sophisticated course of conservation over about overhunting and even to preserve the biodiversity. Uh, so they are the people who are looking after the environment better than anyone else. So that's why uh, now the new conservation policy says that the tribal people right at their heart. That is, we have to recognize their right. They may not be owning the land, but we cannot deprive them from the right that they have on the forest. And we have to recognize that they are the best conservationists and guardians of our natural world. And probably this will be a more significant step towards the genuine environmental protection, uh, so that we can have a better future of the tomorrow. So, specially estimated that there are 60 million indigenous people are totally depending on the forest. Uh, Another 350 million people depends on the forest for high degree of substance, whereas 60 million people are exclusively depending on forest. Another 350, mostly they depend on forest for their subsistence as well as for the income. This is the report given by the World Bank in 2004. But a poor forest ecosystem service will affect them, because that is providing them food, shelter, clothing, heating, everything. Uh, so this is the role of these indigenous people, or what you call the ethnic groups or tribal groups, and how they are helping in biodiversity management. Then the next topic will be water, about water use and over exploitation. All of you are familiar. I need not mention again about the use of the water. Uh, for the very simple reason that one cannot imagine a life without water. In fact, the life originated and evolved in water. Now you may ask, we have plenty of water. About three-fourths is the water, and why we should think about it. So you will come to know that though three-fourths of our land is covered by water, how important the water is, and what is the how important the water crisis is also. So we use water for various purposes, for agriculture, industries, household, recreational, and even for environmental activity. But remember, for all these things, we human beings require the fresh water. ಫ್ರೆಶ್ ವಾಟರ್ ಮೀನ್ಸ್ ಏನು ಸಿಹಿ ನೀರು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಿರಲ್ಲ. ಫ್ರೆಶ್ ವಾಟರ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಸಿಹಿ ನೀರಿಗೆ, ಆರ್ ದಿಸ್ ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ವೀಟ್ ವಾಟರ್ ಅಥವಾ ಸಿಹಿ ನೀರು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಿರಲ್ಲ, ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ನೀವು ಫ್ರೆಶ್ ವಾಟರ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀರಿ. ಸೊ ದಟ್ಸ್ ವೈ ದಿ ಫ್ರೆಶ್ ವಾಟರ್ ಬಿಕಮ್ಸ್ and that is on which we all are depending. See, this is the graphical represent distribution of water on the earth. See, 97% of the water what we have is the marine water or saline water. Only 3% is the fresh water. And all of us are depending on this 3% fresh water. Okay, then if you take the fresh water itself, see here fresh water, the most 68.7% of the fresh water is in the ice in the form of ice caps or glaciers, either in the mountain tops or in the polar regions, in both North Pole as well as the South Pole. And remaining 30.1% is the groundwater, which is found in a very deeper crust layers of the earth crust. So whatever the surface water we call, on which most of our activities are depending, is only uh, other is 9%. In that the surface water is only 0.3%. Now imagine, though we have a vast amount of water on the earth, how much is useful? Fresh water is only 3%. Out of these 3%, surface water is only 0.3%. Out of this 0.3%, we know lakes have around 87% of this water, swamps have 11%, and rivers have under 2%. Otherwise, as I have told you, uh, fresh water is very very scarce. If you out of the 3% fresh water, uh, actually the polar ice caps 2%, and remaining 1% is available fresh water in the form of either groundwater or other. That's only the scarcity. Um, but remember, this fresh water is a renewable resources. Um, Yet, though it's a renewable resources, all of us are nowadays deprived of clean fresh water steadily, and it is increasing day by day. So that's why whenever you go out, you prefer mineral water bottles. So water demand has already exceeded the supply in many parts of the world. This is mainly because of our dependency on water has also increased, and not only that, the population has also increased. Because of this, uh, already our demand is more than what is available. How we use the water? Household uses, personal use, and recreational uses. Household use, it may be wash the garden, turning up the fire, wash dirts, drink water, take shower, or play on the beach, go to the pool, fishing, surfing. These are all the uses of water. And in agriculture, if you come to the fresh water, agriculture, whatever the 3% of the fresh water that is available, 69% of the water is used for irrigation purpose. Then in industry, we use 15% of the water for industrial things, especially in power plants, oil refineries, and different. Then household consumption of the water is about 15%. Then whatever the 1% what remains, that is used for recreational activities, environmental activities, and all those things. So maximum water is utilized for what is called as the agriculture activity. But unfortunately, we are exceeding or overutilizing or over exploiting whatever the resources are there. Uh, Actually, the water is renewable through the water cycle. Water evaporates, then condenses in the cloud, and then precipitation or rainfall comes. As a result, the water in through this water cycle, water maintains a balance. But uh, what has happened? One of the greatest challenges of today is the management of the water resources. All these things are because of our population explosion. It is said that by 2025, even India is also will face the water crisis. Already in some parts in the summer, you know that the water crisis, even many of you might have faced. Summer, you have to go somewhere with your some cans or anything, drums, and get the water from elsewhere. Though we are receiving a good lot of rain during the rains. Um, all these things are overutilization of the water taking place at every level, and most people use more water than required. Most of the water is also wasted. Uh, Farmers also sometimes use the double the water requirement for the irrigation, because in agriculture you need not pay for electricity bills. So when the water is there, people do not care about the use of it and overuse it and over exploit it. See, if you see this groundwater, the surface water is the water which is available in lakes, rivers, and freshwater wetlands. Uh, Usually, the surface water is replenished by the precipitation or rainfall, what you call. Naturally lost to the discharge to the ocean, evaporation, and subsurface seepages. But subsurface water, the water, one of the most valuable source of water beneath our foot, what we call the groundwater. Most of our agriculture is depend on this groundwater. Even for our livelihood activities also, we are depending on this groundwater by either by digging the well, open well or tube well. Uh, then below that also we have some water, that is what you call aquifer in the earth crust. There is also some amount of subsurface water is there. Usually this is the groundwater evaporation. This is the filtration. This become the water table and groundwater flow. This is how when you dig a well you will get the water. Then most of the water table is decreasing year by year, because the groundwater enrichment is not taking place. What happens during the rain season? It should percolate down and enters into the groundwater. If that is the saturated zone, it is known as. But we are exploiting even the groundwater also. How much we depend on the groundwater? According to this, actually 22% of all freshwater withdrawal comes from this groundwater. Either it may be bore wells or open wells. 37% of agriculture depends on this groundwater. Even 37% of public water supply is also coming from this groundwater. Almost 51% of all drinking water for the total population comes from this groundwater, because even in our area, each one of us have our own well. Uh, 99% of the drinking water in the rural area, that comes from this groundwater. Then you imagine. Now what is happening is, because of the over exploitation, and uh, we are not allowing the water to percolate. Groundwater is also decreasing year by year. That's the major problem that we are facing. Because of the scarcity, we have lot of problems, lot of conflicts are also arising. Probably both within the country and outside the country also. So that's the major problem that we have nowadays. Uh, we have the water problem with, as far as our Indus water in Sindhu Nadi ನೀರಿನ ಕುರಿತಾಗಿ, we have a lot of dispute with Pakistan, India, Nepal, and China. And Ganga water dispute is with India and Bangladesh. And all of you are very well aware about our Kaveri water dispute. The dispute within our country in between three states, Kerala, Karnataka, and Tamil Nadu. Even so, this water conflicts are because of deficient water flow, especially in the rivers. We are not getting enough amount of water, so that's why it is causing lot of problems and conflicts either between the states or different nations. It has been said, it is said that if the third world war is going to happen, it is not for land or any other things, but is only for the water. Just imagine the importance. Multiple conflicts between the uh, countries we can have. Around 20 major cities in India uh, face chronic or interrupted water shortage. At the same time, around 100 countries all over the world share the waters of one of 13 large rivers and lakes, especially in Amazon, Nile, and many of the lakes. Uh, there is a water sharing agreement. Actually, upstream countries between the downstream countries, or upstream states and downstream states. Uh, what's happening is because of this scarcity of water, a lot of conflicts have started, especially Ethiopia and Egypt. Ethiopia is in upstream and Egypt is in the downstream of Nile and are highly dependent on River Nile for their water supply. But if the Ethiopia uses more water, Egypt will get less water. And the flow of water in the Nile has also decreased. So many problems have come there. And international accords um, for the fair distribution of water will become critical to the world peace. How to share this one? Because water is a so precious commodity that, for example, Ethiopia, they say that they are the upper stream people and they will block the river. Egypt says that no, they can't block the rivers because Egypt is also depending on the Nile water river. So all those things are there. Even India and Bangladesh, there was a problem, but recently we have entered into a pact where fair usage of water of the Ganga River. Uh, you know the problem that is associated with India and Pakistan relating to this Brahmaputra, this Sindhu River. Multiple complex and this is about all these things are because of the over exploitation of the our natural resources. So unless we mitigate this problem by enforcing or creating awareness among the public with respect to the scarcity of water and how we are going to uh, deprive our future generation from the clean potable water, the life in the future appears to be very precarious for me. uh, the next After this, let me move on to the next one, which speaks about the droughts. Probably what is drought, the photograph itself will tell you a lot about the drought. What is drought? How the drought comes causes, it is because of non availability of the water. So here the drought is another very recurrent phenomenon even within India and elsewhere also. Uh, it has a widespread adverse impact on these people's livelihood, even on the children's nutrition status also, because no nutrients will be available and it will be very difficult for the survival of vulnerable people. About 50 million people are annually affected by drought, because approximately 90 million hectares of rain-fed areas. Out of that, 40 million hectares are prone to scanty or no rain. So if the rain comes, it's good. If there is no rain, then there's drought. probably now and then you read in the newspaper. Now you read about the flood. Once from December, January, you read lot many things in the newspaper or in electronic media about the drought because of the failure of the rain. Um, Drought has caused severe suffering in the affected area in the recent years, especially uh, in the drought causes poverty, hunger, unemployment, all those things. So this, what to do for that? First, we should be able to identify why it's so. What is the hazard? If that drought comes, who are the people who are vulnerable? What is the intensity of the risk, assessment risk? Then we should think about removal of the hazard for all natural disasters. How to hazard? Then we should think how best whatever the water is available, how best we can use it. We can make a sustainable utilization of the water that is used. Or in case of the drought water, there is no alternative also. Then planning and mitigation. There might be contingency planning, what to do, how to supply water, and all those things will be the major problem. The usually drought means we have some image in our mind, that is dry land, parched land, no rainfall, crop failures, starvation, very bad living condition. All those things comes in our mind. So that's why we can say that drought is a condition of acute scarcity of water. Because of that, there will be scarcity of food, fodder, and employment, mostly because of the very scanty rainfall. So that's why the if we come to India, uh, I have already told you 70% of uh, our lands are usually uh, water fed areas, only using the water if the rain fed areas. So if the good rain is there, then okay, otherwise there will be a drought. So then this drought, all of a sudden, it will not develop. It will develop over a period of time. Without uh, period of time, so then we can say that it is slow onset, the disorders. Like unlike cyclones, earthquakes, or flood, it is not. It will not come all of a sudden, but it will be slow access. Usually starts with the scanty rain. If the total rainfall is less than the normal for several months, then the drought starts. Um, Soil becomes very dry. Even trees show the sign of dying. Weather gets hotter and hotter day by day. So that's why causes of this drought. One is the deficiency of rain. How the deficiency of the rain is caused? It is all of you know that the deficiency of the rain is because of deforestation. Then drought can happen because of the soil erosion also, because it will not be able to, we will not be able to grow anything because of the sterile soil. Soil has become sterile because of the soil erosion and even the global warming. So these are some of the most important problems that are caused by the uh, drought. So, how to overcome this drought? That uh, for this, once we know the cause, we can think about this. Deficiency of rainwater is the first cause. For this, only the thing what we can do is we can't do anything immediately. what is important is the very good forest. If the earth is covered by forest, uh, even the rain or hydrological cycle is also put in a balance. Then deforestation, of course, answer is already it is the reforestation and afforestation. Then many times what happens, the drought is because of the soil erosion. In spite of heavy, good rain, the people or the agriculturists are unable to grow good crops when in a eroded soil because the fertility is lost. So that's why we have to mitigate the soil erosion. And nowadays, the more severe impact about the drought is from this global warming. Global warming, I have told you in the last class a little bit. This global warming has altered our hydrological cycle. So we can, what is happening is uh, the rain pattern has also changed. For example, in our area only since last 2 years, all of you have experienced. In the month, usually we have the heavy rain in the month of June, July, August. In September means the rains recede. But unfortunately, since last 2 years, we have seen that we have seen maximum flood in the September and very less rain in the month of June. This is an example how this uh, rain cycle or water cycle uh, has changed because of the global warming. So, if we are able to uh, mitigate this, certainly water may not be a problem for us. And more than that, nowadays the time has come instead of drilling the earth for water, we should more depend on the ground surface water, especially the water that we receive during the rains. If we are able to harvest the rain, rain harvesting is a very important thing as far as finding a solution for this water crisis. Rain, especially in this area, even if you think, all of you know that we get very heavy rainfall, something 300 to 400 inches of rain in the rainy season, but still in the month of April, May, we uh, have the scarcity of water. So why the problem is whatever the rain that we receive is not properly uh, channelized. Instead of that, it reaches the ocean. Uh, there is no percolation of the water. Only when the water percolates, then there will be enrichment of the groundwater. That is the need of the hour. So, in order to enrich the groundwater, what we should do is we should not allow the water to flow, but instead of that, we should stop the water either by building gully checks or it can be by building some trenches where the water gets stored and percolate. But unfortunately, in our drainage system is also everything is plastered, so even a drop of water doesn't percolate into the ground, but it flows and reaches the river and ultimately to the ocean. So unless we practice and implement such measures, the days of the future will be very, very uh, risky and dangerous also. We should also think about storing the groundwater in the tanks and utilizing that during the drought or when there's a scarcity of water. So this is about the drought. Then about the flood, probably I can just start about the flood and then I will continue in the next class. Flood is the another problem. On one side we have the drought and on other side we have the floods. About 30 million people are affected naturally by the flood. Um, in some of the plains like Indo-Gangetic and Brahmaputra plains, flood is an annual feature. Even if you come to our Western Ghat also, it's an annual feature. Average few hundred lives are lost every year because of this flood. Millions are rendered homeless. and we lose several thousand hectares of crops being damaged because of this flood. It's only because 70% of the total rainfall occurs over a very short monsoon session, June to September. So the rain is not very well distributed. There will be downpouring in the month of August, September, and that causes the flood. And it has become a perennial phenomenon. At least if you go to some of the northeastern region like Assam and northeast region, and Assam, Bihar, Orissa, Uttar Pradesh, and Western Bengal. Uh, Even the globe climate change has influence on this flood, and even there are many areas which we consider traditionally uh, the flood prone areas, not flood prone areas, they are also the started receiving the flood. In 2006, drought prone parts of Rajasthan has also experienced the flood. So this is a very interesting thing to study, and for the time being, I will stop here, and we will continue in the next class. So, ಏನು ಕೇಳಿಸ್ತಾ ಸರಿಯಾಗಿ?